Roman Reigns gets pinned. Roman Reigns gets pinned at Money in the Bank by his own cousin, Jey Uso. The Usos defeated Roman and Solo Sikoa in the main event and the Bloodline Civil War. Oh my God. Guys, what a night. First of all, the UK pay-per-view being early was sweet. But what an ending. What an ending. After the commentators, Michael Cole said this, we've heard it countless times. Roman Reigns, 3 years, December 15th, I think it was the TLC pay-per-view when Baron Corbin pinned him, which it was not clean, by the way, when he beat him, was the last time he was defeated back in 2019 via pinfall. And that came to an end tonight. You know, what made this match so amazing was the fact that you didn't know who was going to win. Because even though Roman Solo lost the last match to Sami and Kevin at Night of Champions, Solo took the pin in that match. And it was last night on SmackDown that they said they were going to put an end to Roman's streak of not being pinned. And it happened. I did not think it was going to happen. I thought Solo would maybe take the pin again if they lost. But the way that they did this, the way that they put this together, I mean, they had you on your feet. They had you thinking that plenty of times in the match that Roman and Solo were going to win it. And, I mean, probably the best kick out of the whole match was when the ref bump happened and Solo and Roman hit both of the Usos with the Uranagi, and then Solo hit him with the spike combination of the spear, and he stacked them together, said he was going to stack them like he stacked Daniel Bryan and Edge at WrestleMania 37. And when the ref got back in the ring, they kicked out. That was probably the best kick out of the whole match. Now, of course, when the ref was down, they hit him with the 1D. You know, much of the beginning of the match, Roman was, really milking the fans with the reaction he was getting. The fans were actually cheering, "If you hate Roman, stand up. If you hate Roman, stand up." You gotta love the UK crowd. They were chanting a lot of things tonight. You know, even chanting Bayley's song, which she tried to ignore in the Money in the Bank match, the women's Money in the Bank match. But man, this was something. I mean, in a night full of surprises, or should I say, a night full of a return, a swerve, and then this. I did not think it would happen. I got to give props to WWE for this. I mean, so many times you've thought this person could have pinned Roman, this person could have pinned Roman, and it never happened. And if it was one set of guys that could do it, you figure he'd probably have it be one of his cousins. But throughout the match, Roman was, taunting the fans, the early part of it, really getting offended over them. He tried to get at first him and Solo looked like there was a little dissension when he told Solo to tag him. Solo didn't really want to do it. And from that point on, they just Solo actually dominated a good portion of the match on the Usos. A lot of the offense was, being taken on Jimmy to prevent Jimmy from tagging in Jay. But once Jay got in there, that's when the match really started to get going. But the bulk of the match, though, was just Solo. There was a point where Jimmy tried to hit Solo, and Solo clocked him with like a punch or so, and it was, he knocked out Jimmy, and it looked like Jimmy was out of it, and from that point on, Solo took over the bulk of the match. Then when Jay got in there, it really got going. Roman would tag him for a little while, get back out, but ultimately, Paul Heyman tried to tell him, that they're trying to take your headship. They're trying to have, be the head of the table, have your kids sit on the table. And he wasn't happy about that. He was giving him that counsel, and then, Roman gets back in the ring all angry. So, face expressions of Roman said it all. But ultimately, moment after moment happened at this point. The super kicks, the spikes, the fact that, after they kicked out of that combination, Solo tried to put Jimmy through the announce table. He missed, and I ended up falling through the announce table. And this, This match, as a lot of Roman matches since he's been a heel, has been story driven. And the best thing about this was the elements of the stories that it was telling. You know, how fitting for Jay to be the one who to pin Roman. First of all, we consider way back in the beginning, and Michael Cole when Jimmy tried to hit the splash on Roman, and Roman put him in the guillotine because he had him in the guillotine for a while. He re-referenced that happened to Hell in a Cell, and it was in 2020 when Jimmy tried to save Jay in that I Quit match in Hell in a Cell, and Roman pretending like he was sorry, and then only to put Jimmy in the guillotine. That's ultimately what led to Jay to say I quit, and that's ultimately what led to Jay to fall in line, and that's ultimately what led to the slow build of the bloodline with Jay falling in line, being his right hand man, being the main event Jay Uso eventually, and that's where we got to all of this. So that was a good little throwback. Also, the ending, because when Roman, uh, there was the sequence of super kick, uh, Superman punch, super kick again, spear. When he hit Jay with the spear, Jay kicks out, hits him with a low blow, which this was a throwback because in a lot of Roman's matches, and even in his first match with his own cousin Jay back in Night of Champions, uh, or at that time they were still calling it Clash of Champions, there was a low blow he used to kick out of the splash. So this time, Jay did that to him, kicking out of the super kick. And then it all went downhill from there. Super kick solo, super kick Roman again. They did hit the 1D earlier, but the ref was down. Then they went for the splash. Jimmy tagged Jay. Jay gets the pinfall win. Roman's in the strut. Solo's out of it. It's funny because they said if he loses, what does that mean? Solo could be the next tribal chief. And Solo looked at him. Roman was laughing. Then when he saw Solo, he got afraid. So you got to start to wonder what this loss. Now, of course, we know Roman's still not losing that belt anytime soon. Perhaps this could lead to another match with Jay and Roman at SummerSlam. I mean, after all, he did pin Roman. Roman hasn't been pinning that long. I would say give him the title shot, even though he would lose again. And, it would suck because, we want to see Roman drop the belt at this point. But, I mean, maybe that's the direction they're going. It's interesting to see where they're going to go with this at SummerSlam. Maybe Solo, leaves Roman the SmackDown, post SmackDown Money in the Bank. I'm really fascinated to see where they go with this because they can go in so many different directions, especially at this point now that they've lost yet again. And Roman was the one who took the pin. That's going to make him even more conflicted. But, this demise is what should have happened at WrestleMania with him. But, the story they were telling was that the Usos lost the belts and Roman just got more and more fed up with them. But really, if they had all lost the belts, it would have had an even more crazier effect. But this was not for the titles. This was not a title match. This was a, regular tag match. But it killed it once it really got going. Like I said, it was storyline driven, so it wasn't as typical Roman matches you would expect. But once it really got going towards the last couple of minutes, I thought that was the best parts of the match. Other parts of the show, I mainly just want to come on and talk about this because this is huge. I mean, Roman, the only downside about it is I think we can all agree that, we probably don't know that WWE is, obsessed with records, so they'll probably still have Roman be champion for a lot longer than we, I mean, he's been, doing great with this character, but I would like to see him drop the belt at some point. But, we just, at this point, who knows when that'll happen. But this is a huge start because here's another interesting thing about Jay pinning Roman. Jay Uso, when the Usos, and I think it was them and several other members of the roster back when the Shield were unstoppable. It was Jay Uso think it was a 7-on-3 match too on Raw. It was Jey Uso who was the first one to pin Roman way back then, and that was almost 10 years ago. Um, it was Jey who did that. So history repeats itself again. Jey, the first one to pin him almost 10 years ago on Raw. Jey pins him again almost 10 years later. Roman being champ, breaking his 3-year undefeated streak of being pinned. And, because you can't say undefeated streak of losing because he actually did lose to Seth Rollins at the Royal Rumble last year. He intentionally got himself DQ'd. But, this was something. Elsewhere in the show, you know, you had the women's Money in the Bank, which Io Sky won. I was definitely glad she won. There were points in the match where it looked like Bayley or Becky was going to win it, which I really didn't want. As much as I like both of them, and Bayley's getting a lot of babyface reactions, but she's still, being a heel. And obviously, this is going to lead to the breakup of Damage Control with the way that this went, because Bayley was the one who screwed Io from climbing the ladder, and then Io actually handcuffed Bayley and Becky to initially grab the ladder. But Io, from the moonsault she did on everybody from the ladder, that looked sweet. You had the moment where Selena Vega hit a sun's code red on Zoe Starks, which they actually said that was a move by her cousin, Amazing Red, which I didn't even know they were cousins, so that was interesting to learn. But that looks sick. Almost could have went wrong, if it wasn't hit right. A lot of moments in the match, some of them were a little botched that they were trying to go for. It was one point Trish Stratus tried to hit kind of like a Hurricane Rana, but she kind of messed it up. One point she hit like a Stratusfaction. I think she tried to hit it on Becky, but it didn't really look like it connected that well. But it was all right for what she did. But it wasn't probably the best match for them. But they definitely had their moments, and I'm glad that Io won it. I definitely think she deserves it. And she was like the runner-up anyway, the pick that a lot of people expected to win it. And you also had a point where Becky Lynch actually hit the manhandle slam. What was it, on Trish Stratus on the ladder? So that looked pretty nasty. So a lot of innovative moments in this match. But the moral of the story is that Io got a moment, and you can see Bayley and them just looking crazy. And she even tried to tell the crowd to shut up when they were chanting their song. Also, Seth retained his world heavyweight title from Finn after Damian Priest came out. Finn looked like he was going to get the upper hand with all the stumps he was giving to Seth. Damian kind of got in, basically did the same thing Finn did to him when Finn kind of cost him the title match on Raw. So there's definitely going to be dissension there. It seems, it's crazy. This is kind of how Vince is still pulling the strings with some of these booking, because you could tell that he's pulling the strings because of this obsession of constantly breaking up teams or factions. So with this whole situation, you already know that Damian, who won the Money in the Bank early in the night, LA Knight looked like he was going to win it, and then it went to Damian, which I said that. I was like, if LA don't win it, they'll probably give it to Damian. It just definitely seemed like the direction they were going to go, and that's exactly what happened. So Damian ended up winning, and then later he looked like he was going to potentially cash in, but he just sat there and basically cost Finn the match. So there's going to be some dissension there, as it already has been between them, and that's just going to make things even worse. Probably end up, Damian gets kicked out or Finn gets kicked out. I think somebody's going to get kicked out, and JD McDonough might join, the group as a newer member. It seems like that might be something that they do, which sucks, because I'd rather him still join, but they all be together. But this is the direction they seem to be going with this. Um, Cody, beat Dominic clean. No return by Brock Lesnar. That was, as they said, was potentially going to happen. So I guess that might happen on Raw. They might push it a little bit further before that happens. So no return by Brock Lesnar. Um, I actually kind of thought Dominic needed the win here. But, everybody on Judgment Day lost except Damon. Um, and of course, Rhea didn't have a match. She got one on Raw with Natalya again. Um, New women tag team champions Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. After Shayna swerved, probably one of the craziest swerves, but she just turned on Ronda out of nowhere. They looked like they had the upper hand, and she just attacked Ronda, which seems to be setting up a match between them at SummerSlam. I didn't think they were going to break them up this soon. I mean, they just won the titles not that long ago, and then they just unified the titles. What was it, last week on SmackDown against Alva Fire and Alva Dawn? They just unified the titles, beating them for the NXT tag belts. The SmackDown before last week on SmackDown. So it's kind of strange that they decided to break them up this early, and they literally just won the belts like not that long ago. Like as soon as Raquel and Liv had to relinquish the belts, they won it. They won the belts. So it's just, I think, when I say not that long ago, I literally mean like they just won the belts. I think it was earlier last month that they won the belts. So interesting that they went that direction. But Shayna's better off by herself anyway. Maybe the Queen of Spades, we'll see that more intense version of her that she had when she first came to the main roster in 2020. So that was interesting. So this seemed to lead to a match between them at SummerSlam. I'm looking forward to if that's what they're going with. And yeah, even though Ronda's not really, I wouldn't say she hasn't looked as good as she did her first run. It's been a lot different this time around for her. And outside of that, like I said, Damian Priest won the men's Money in the Bank. So yeah, this was quite a show. Drew McIntyre came back after Gunther retained against Matt Riddle. I was actually hoping Randy Orton would come out, and I feel like that would have got even master pop. And there was news reports that he possibly would have came back, but Drew McIntyre cleared the air. I guess at this point he resigned because he did come out. He attacked Gunther, so that's going to continue the whole IC title where he left off at WrestleMania. So that was nice to finally see Drew come back. So yeah, what a show! Return of Drew, swerve with Shayna, new women's tag champs for that. And to top it off, Roman gets pinned. So I mean, this was an amazing show. Yeah, this was definitely something. So I just wanted to mainly come here to talk about that, but I also wanted to briefly talk about the rest of the show. So sign over, Mr. Flex, comment, like, comment, subscribe, talk to you guys.